So it is my great honor to introduce you to several local, civic, political leaders who are going to be on the forefront, on those front lines, pushing to make your industry, this space, much more of a real, tangible part of our economy, our society, our day-to-day lives. It's time to bring this community out from behind and start to make it a leading driving force in our day-to-day lives. So if you're ready for that, then what we're going to do is I'm going to start introducing my friends. First one we've got here is Mr. Darin Mitchell, former chairman of the Arizona State House Committee on Commerce and Ways and Means at the State House. Is this better, folks? You can hear me? All right. So besides Darin Mitchell, we also got Mr. Kelly Cooper, former Marine restaurant owner, running for Congress here in Arizona to help make our industry a real thing. We've got Mr. Ed Saylor, a gentleman who is going to be one of the leaders in NFT policy, pushing it in state legislatures across the country. And it is my real honor to introduce General Mick McGuire from the United States Air Force, United States Senate candidate here in Arizona. All right, so someone had the bright idea of putting me in charge of this. So let's see what it, thank you. Your check is in the mail. So what we were asked to do is to have this conversation of what do we have to do to bring this industry, this space out of the dark so that people understand, so that there's a way to have people interact on blockchain and the NFT crypto space where there are some guidelines, where there is a way to have some rules of the road so that as people want to get involved, they know that it is safer, it's more honest, it's more open, so that we can get more and more people interested, because I think as everyone here knows, in this audience here and for everybody watching, that it's more fear-based than anything that is stopping people from really getting into this. So what we're here to talk about today is exactly that. And I'm going to start with a question kind of for everybody here. And that is going to be one of the biggest questions that we've heard here today is we want to get involved, we want more access to this space. What from a government side, because everyone knows the government will eventually get involved, what can people do, in your opinions, each one of you, to help make that happen, to work with people like yourselves who are in that public policy area? What can they do? And we'll just kind of go, down the line.
Okay, I'll start on that question. So today there was a bill in front of the Arizona House of Representatives on cryptocurrency that didn't fare well because the representatives didn't understand what was going on. In fact, many of the representatives asking questions said, "I don't understand this. I don't understand what you're trying to do." And it really was not a big deal. It was just a basic codification of some guidelines. But so as citizens, if we get involved, if you guys are involved, obviously in this space, if you get involved with your representatives in your states, in your cities, and for your Congress people, and help educate them. I know that I've just started the process of getting educated, but before that, nobody ever came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to learn about cryptocurrency, or are you interested in it? Are you in it?" And so you can't expect everybody. I mean, this is such a new space, and the numbers are small. So really, we need to get those guys interested that are representing us so that they can make smart decisions to represent you and what you want done. It's kind of setting up the guardrails for this place.
Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, so I would also add, I think that everything that Darin has said is right on, but I would also add that all of you have an audience back in your own town. So it's no different than how I'm trying to campaign. Tonight, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go to a meet and greet at a local place and I'm going to talk to people. You know, that fear that stops people from doing something that they may find successful, they may find very exciting and lucrative, it's paralyzing to some people. And for someone that's already involved, somebody that already has a base of knowledge, to create a safe space, whether in your home or in some restaurant in your community, that people can come ask questions and have some of that fear removed. That would be a giant help. And then now you have a force multiplier when you come talk to somebody like myself or Darin.
Mr. Saylor.
Yeah, I think I'll just dovetail on what some of the comments that have been made here is educate yourself, not only on what an NFT is, but also to try to propagate that across all of your network, right? You all know people. We're talking to folks here who are elected officials or hopefully elected officials here in Arizona. Sorry, by the way, for the weather that you all encountered here this week. But back home, the other day at the pizza night, I met a lot of people from Crescent City, a lot of people from Oregon and from other areas, and just not only educate yourself, but I would say understand what the coming legislation is. From what I understand, there's already legislation taking place at the federal level. There's already legislation that has happened, and from what I understand, passed in, I believe, in Wyoming. But that doesn't necessarily work for everyone, right? And so, just like the old saying is, if you want to make change, understand it to make great impact.
General McGuire.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. General Mick McGuire, I want to first apologize. I'm going to have to step out in a few minutes to do an interview, but I promise to be back at 4:30. But the interview, ironically, is about the Ukraine and what's happening there. And I think this is an amazing opportunity to talk about just that. As we have digitized currency and look at cryptocurrency and look at the rest, my biggest concern is not about the innovative spirit of this great nation and our ability to be leaders, to provide privacy, autonomy, and the ability for you to do commerce. It's the ability of others to take advantage and use nefarious intent to steal intellectual property and, in this case, real assets. And how are we going to fix that? We got to have some guardrails, but we got to let the innovative spirit of this great nation be unleashed at every level. That's really how we get after it, is that we go after the idea that we're late adapters here. I saw this as the state emergency manager. Cybercrime is an opportunity, unfortunately, where you put a big pot of money on the table. A lot of people are leaving their cyber doors unlocked, and that's leading to a lot of problems in this space. And it starts first at forums like this, educating folks, Adam, getting them to understand it. Make sure that people, like Kelly said, we talk to people about it. They understand what it is. It gives us opportunity, and it allows us to maintain an advantage as the greatest country in the history of the world, leading in this space instead of following. So thanks.
On that note, and I know the general will be back in a moment, what we can do, because he talked about the innovative spirit of this country and especially people in this room, because everyone here and everyone watching, wherever you are, this is new uncharted territory for most people. You are these pioneers. And one of the great things I think we all can agree that's made this country what it is that pioneering spirit. So in dovetailing with what the general just said, and we'll start with this, there tends to be a want on the government side of things to overregulate, overtax, overdo it when left unchecked. What are things that you gentlemen here think from a government perspective that could be done to put restraints on that over-governing, which everyone here has seen in one shape or another? So how do we want to tackle that?
Okay, I'll go first on that. When I got asked to come up here today, I thought of a bill that I wrote 7 years ago. And I want to relate it to you because it really applies to this. Because we have over-regulation and over-taxation between the state, local, and federal levels. That I'm a small business owner. I hate it. We don't want to do that to you guys, and that's not our intent. But 7 years ago, I wrote a bill that created a free enterprise zone. And so it was for here in Arizona. We were going to take a big chunk of desert in one of the rural counties and create almost an unregulated area. We were going to try to take, now it's a geographical area, so it's different than what we're talking about in this space, but the idea is the same. So we're going to take a large geographical area and then try to roll back 100 years of regulations, ordinances, and tax policy. The idea, if you can visualize this, was to create somewhat of a Dubai in Arizona, a great economic engine that would drive the state's economy for generations to come. I thought it was great because my imagination was sparked with the potential of what that could create, just like this does for all of us. The difference is it's not tied to any geographical location. This is global. And the difference is we don't have to roll back necessarily regulation and tax policy yet because we're so young. But what we want to do is get involved so that we can create guidelines, guardrails, whatever you want to call them, to keep the bad actors out, to make it a safe place for all of us to invest and build our dreams and create whatever it is we want to create. So the idea is for people like me in state legislatures and for Kelly in Congress is to implement smart policy and to create coalitions of like-minded people to implement smart policies that'll help this place. Not to squash it. We don't want to do that. We don't want to put a wet towel on this at all. We want it to grow and expand and change the world. But we still need some smart regulation. So the way to do that, in my view, is by talking to people like you. You're the experts. The people that are engaged in this process, that are invested, you're the experts. I need you to come to me and tell me what would be smart ways to regulate certain areas where people are getting harmed. We need to look at taxes from a way that won't punish people, that won't keep you from investing. We don't want to take your profits, at least I don't. But the other side of that is to find like-minded people and support them for offices in your states, whether it's in Congress or in the state legislatures, and that's how we do it.
Not leaving a lot of room there. No, he's absolutely right. I mean, the truth is that this is a new field. It's a new industry. You all have a good basis and foundation in there, but there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear from the government, and there's a lot of fear from individuals that want to get involved. And the tendency for fear then is to overregulate. It's to say, we're going to put in these guardrails and we're going to protect from every possible scenario. And we have to refrain from that. We have to allow real great innovation to thrive and grow. And the more you stifle that with regulations, the more you're going to find that it doesn't prosper. I'm a business owner. I have 3 restaurants here in town, and what I've always found is the more I can keep the government out of my business, the better off I always am. So my goal from a federal level will be to be as restrictive on the government side as possible.
How do I follow that? So I'll just make a couple of points here. One is you all in here are pioneers. I think the word was used earlier. One of the questions that I had written down as I was jotting down my questions earlier is, who here has experience with NFTs, right? I didn't know if we were going to have folks who were just brand spanking new to the world of NFTs. It's clear to me that you all are first movers. You are innovators. I have been viewed as a laggard, right? I wasn't the first one to buy the DVD player, right? But what I would say is harness that. Not only learn NFTs, but what you all are hearing here with these gentlemen is so that we don't end up in a situation where overreaching from the government starts to stifle innovation and starts to stifle you all wanting to advance. And what I heard you guys say the other night about what you're doing in these other underserved communities is it really got me energized. And I applaud you all for what you're doing. Kind of like the Bombas socks, right? You buy one and then they send one to an underserved community. You all have that model, and I love that. So, I just take another point is taking it back to, like, let's say 20 plus years ago, when e-commerce really became the place to go shop, Amazon, for example. At first, there were no taxes, right? If you bought something from another state, you didn't get taxed. It was fantastic. And then they started, then the government took hold. I think the best thing is to get educated and to get tied in with your local folks like these guys back in your hometowns.
So in line with that, as we look at what's going on in the future, this is a real quick question for you guys. All of you in some degree have been involved in public policy development. For people, so in this industry, a lot of people, as we talked and as I've gotten to know a lot of people here, it's a now kind of industry. Let's get going yesterday. So people can understand, if we wanted to move aggressively, full steam ahead, can you guys help educate these folks here today on this? What are we looking at in terms of educating the elected officials, moving the machine of government, which is known for moving as slow as possible? What does it take from your guys' experience and knowledge to move this? Because countries like Russia and China and others all over the world are already moving way ahead of us. So from your ideas, how do we jumpstart that engine?
So obviously there's no stopping you guys now, so we're not going to put a pause on anything. So what we're going to be doing is playing catch up to you, to catch up to what's happening, as it should be. Politicians always like to get applause lines, so I appreciate that. But I want to beckon back, this will tie this in. The bill that I told you about, where I was trying to create a free enterprise zone in the desert, it didn't pass. We didn't get that passed. And the reason was because nobody could understand the concept. My fellow representatives, both parties, thought, well, this is crazy. This is unfair to other businesses. I'm a business owner, but I was willing to let that happen and pay my taxes over here and let that area go and let it develop and let people come in with creativity and capital and invest in whatever and let that place go and thrive. But too many people didn't really understand what would be the consequences of that. The negative consequence. I'm assuming they were worried about the negative consequences. And so it never passed. And I still have people to this day asking me to rewrite that bill and rerun it if I get elected again. And I would love to. But this is what we're doing here is even more important. But you guys, we're going to be playing catch up to what you're doing, because you guys are going out and innovating and driving the economy. And people who are trying to regulate or hold back regulation are going to be playing catch up. The biggest thing, and I know I keep harping on this, we all do, the biggest thing that any of us can do who want to regulate this smartly and in as small way as possible, just to keep out the bad players and keep it a safe zone for everybody to participate in, is to get involved and talk to your neighbors. I mean, since the last 2 weeks, since I first talked to Mark about coming up here, I always ask people, are you involved? Are you involved in this? And I'm amazed at how many people are that I didn't even know about because they never mentioned it to me. Whether it was I have employees who are heavily involved in Bitcoin and cyber currencies, and I even have another candidate who's involved in this. And so, but if you don't express it and tell people about it, nobody knows. It's a little bit like a religion. If you go out there and spread it, you'll find out that you're not alone. And then if you're not alone, you can influence people like me who are trying to write bills on it smartly. It all comes back to the same thing, having a conversation between all of us and just figuring it out the right way.
Yeah, you're right on.
All right, well.
So running these things ahead, I'll say from my perspective as a restaurant owner and going into politics, one of my restaurants is a franchise, and what you find is the franchisor wants control, and they tend to come in with their ideas. Either they've stolen it from the franchisees that were super innovative and came up with something great that took their unit into the future, and then that overregulation tends to stifle all the rest, and it tends to cause people to be less successful. So what Darin said, share the secret, talk. Don't be within yourself afraid to let people know that you are. I know that there are a lot of bees in here and a lot of other people that are really heavily involved. Keep doing that. This is new to me in some of the Web3 transition conversations that we're having, but blockchain and NFTs and digital currency is something that I've looked at for many years and was too afraid to really jump on, and didn't have somebody to go say, hey, can you mentor me? Can you talk to me about this? You want adoption, you want broad reach, do that. Reach out to your friends and your neighbors, but also vet out your candidates, because if you want the government to accept it, make sure you have candidates that are open to that. Too many people are very closed-minded and very controlling about the way things happen. And if we continue to elect those folks, we will continue to get what we've gotten for 200 years.
All right, I'll say this, just so everyone understands, as you're hearing this theme, one of the things that most people in government do not want to do is look really bad. And if you help them be successful, which is really at the end of the day what everyone wants to be, is successful. You work together as a team, you'll be surprised. We're gonna, to what Kelly was just saying, we're gonna transition to something in government that the government's a big fan of, and that's transparency. And that is, so one of the things that we've all learned with blockchain technology is the ability to actually have real-time transparency in transactions, and not just financial. And without getting into the weeds on the issue, we know that there are a lot of things that are coming up in our politics today and in government, and have been problems from before. We talk a lot about blockchain technology just from a financial perspective, but also from a governmental perspective. What are your guys' thoughts on an ability to at least explore the use of blockchain technology to open up the halls of government to the average citizen, or to activists, or to people here who want to maybe get more involved? What do you guys think on that?
So for me, so I'm a limited government kind of guy. I don't like taxes. I don't like regulations. So blockchain to me is exciting as somebody who is also seeking to be a representative in the state government, because it gives citizens power. It's I don't want to say revolutionary in the sense that we're going to actually have a revolution, but it's revolutionary in the thought that people can have complete transparency, whether it's how we interact with the government, where money's being spent, how it's being spent, all the things as citizens that I think we all ought to have access to anyway. And what happens when that occurs is that you guys become empowered, and it takes power away from the central government. As a citizen, even as a local state representative, I'm really fearful of the federal government, of Congress. And when the Biden administration came out and started expanding the AG's office for cyber currency, I become fearful. Now, it may be totally legitimate, and they're going in to protect people from criminals, but I'm fearful of that. And so I have that natural tendency. If we can become more transparent and empower people and it takes power away from government officials. And some of them are people you don't even know. They're just bureaucrats, not even the elected officials that are actually making the decisions. So the more power the people can get, which is they're going to get through blockchain transparency, and I don't even understand all the ways they're going to get it. That's what's so great about it. I don't even understand it, but I know it's going to happen, and it'll empower all of us as citizens.
Real quick, Kelly, before you, just so I can update as the general's gotten back, just so you know, the question, General, is with blockchain technology, which is allowing much more transparency in interactions, what can we do from a government perspective to explore the opportunity to actually open up the halls of government and the interactions of government with the citizens, and what we can do from, at least in your perspective, would be at a federal level? So that's the question that's going on right now. Catch you up to speed. Mr. Cooper.
It's an interesting question. Blockchain is an exciting foundation for what a lot of this progress has happened. And how we bring that to transparency for general society, I'm not quite sure that I can answer all that educatedly, but what I can say is from my perspective, I'm opening to learning more. I'm not interested in bringing the hammer down on state and local governments. It's more my speed to be as limited as possible. It's actually why I'm running. I'm tired of having people dig in my pockets, and I'm quite sure that you are as well. So I think that we have some exciting opportunities in blockchain, and I think we have some exciting opportunities in the things that you all are pushing forward. So keep doing that. Don't be afraid. Keep pushing forward.
Well, I heard Darin say that the government has never fixed anything. I agree with him about that. So generally speaking, if the overarching question, Adam, is should the government figure this out, the answer is no. I think in my first question I said the innovative spirit of this great nation lies by of and through our people, our ability to educate themselves, to understand the rule of buyer beware. Blockchain technology, while I'm not a crypto guy, like I said, I spent 38 years putting warheads on foreheads and making the trees big and small. But what I do understand is that the government is there to protect your God-given freedoms, liberties, and rights. They're not there to tell you how to make money, how to spend your money, how to transact your money, and anything that interferes with that individual liberty should be opposed. Anything that is not in the name of, as Kelly mentioned, making sure that the bad guys, think state actors and the rest that want to exploit this system, aren't put up, needs to be stopped. And blockchain technology appears to be the next iteration of cryptocurrency development, web capability development, trademarking, for lack of a better term, some of the things we've seen with NFTs, and making sure that the anonymity and passwording and security of that is built into the systems. And we count on individuals that do that to do this, not the government.
So in line with that, and with this question, I'll actually start from the other way and work this way. Right now, from what at least I've learned, and I know just enough folks to be dangerous.
That's true.
He's got jokes too. So we, right now, without getting into what's going on right now from a military perspective in the Ukraine, Russia, but what I think most everybody here knows is Russia has been an aggressive actor in the blockchain, crypto, Bitcoin world. And from a national, I'll say from a national security perspective, as well as, and obviously from a national security perspective, also affects local security as well. What do you think, where can the US government, or where can we take a stand, or how do we begin to fight against or oppose governments like Russia and China that are aggressively state sponsors of this stuff? At least
and I just literally walked off to do an interview about that, and I said, look, the very, very, very critical decision that we have to make if we put young men and women in harm's way has to be thoroughly debated and understand what our interests are. But the four levers of power monetarily is one of the four levers besides the military. And here's my concern about what's happening right now, right this second. I've called to sanction Russia, seize bank accounts, asset forfeiture, and the rest. But here's what I don't know. Because of the anonymous nature of what's happened with the Russians in the crypto space, Mr. Putin may or may not be able to drive right around all those sanctions and continue to power things along. So when you think about what I'm talking about from a national security perspective, it is, and I said this in 2015 when I was a state emergency manager, and we talked about how we handle cyber emergencies in the future. I told people there's no such thing as a cyber emergency. There is an emergency that creates a kinetic effect on people. Dialysis machine goes out, the power goes off. The precipitant event may have been a cyber attack. Well, in the same way here, what I need people to think about is when I made that statement That was 7 years ago. Look how far we've come. And there were people at that point that said, well, I don't want to do my banking online. I don't want to do all of these things online. And the late adapters have been forced to come along. I think we're in the same space with crypto right now, just 7 years forward in time, right? And we can't be the late adapters as a nation because you're seeing other nations take advantage of this space. So that's what I'm hoping all of you figure out, because like I said, there is no one inside a 50 nautical mile radius of DC that I trust to figure this out. All right?
So I just like to dovetail to that is when you think about the American way, right? You think about the innovation, and we want to take control over our innovation and introduction of new technology and adoption and all of these keywords, if you will. And I think there's a great balance as I'm sitting here thinking about, it's our nature to want to privatize as much as we possibly can. Yes, right? But at the end of the day, when we have these bad actors in these other countries who are competing for resources at the end of the day, right? Whether that's for people or money or otherwise, we need to understand, and I'll echo this like the general just said, you all who are eons ahead of where we're all at, is you guys understanding what NFTs are and how that works with cryptocurrency and all of that resides in the blockchain and so on and so forth. Having you all understand it, not only that, more importantly, be able to communicate it to your local officials like these folks here is even more critical, because we by ourselves can't protect ourselves against the Putins of the world. But this is why we need to work and educate folks who are going to be open to the type of legislation that we need to protect these types of innovations.
From my perspective, and similar to the general, I served in the Marines for a short period of time. I've been deployed all over the world. We know that we're in a dangerous time in this country from a digital currency perspective and from the dollar's perspective. China and Russia have been at the forefront of cryptocurrency, and they've been, from a governmental level, been acceptant and moving forward with this, where we've been lagging very, very far behind. And the reason that I say that it's dangerous is because the manipulation of the dollar and the drive to destabilize and potentially replace that as the world currency will be very, very dangerous for this country. So what I would say up here is that I applaud all of you for the work that you've done to this point to get us where we are. And I would implore you to continue to push forward, because we need you, and we will need you into the future driving this.
The only thing I can add to that is this is definitely a national security issue for the United States. I served in the legislature and I'm running for the legislature again, so I actually feel this is above my pay grade, but I will defer to the general on this because I thought both he and Kelly's answers were great.
All right. So in that vein, continuing on the national security aspect of it, and I know, and it was something I always knew. Mark Anthony was the one who actually verbalized it the best I've ever heard. But let's have this conversation for a moment. One of the great strengths of this country is that the United States dollar is the reserve currency of the world. It is what allows our economy to be as dominant as it is, beyond just the innovation of the American people. What, I'll say in a very broad sense, what do you think we need to be doing, or what can we do to continue to strengthen that, so that as these changes digitally are happening with currencies, that the United States maintains its leadership role, and we don't, as we said, lag behind, as China and Russia see this, and other countries see this as a way to make the dollar more irrelevant or irrelevant in the future? General, I'll defer to you.
You want me to go first? All right. I'm up first again. So what I would say about that question is you are exactly right. The reason that the U.S. has so much leverage and power right now, and many of you know this because you're in cryptocurrency, is every world banking transaction is converted into U.S. dollars as the common currency that we trade in. If that is compromised and put in a way where all of our great cryptocurrency, they're valued currently in dollars, is undercut, that removes our ability to have other levers of power. And I say it this way, it's clear to me that there is no country that has a deeper reservoir of innovative spirit and understanding how to do this the right way. What we need is leadership now that unleashes the innovative spirit of the country to give the problem set. And the problem set is ultimately your wealth and your requirements and your capabilities come by and through the people of your great nation and those natural resources. So look at what's happening right now in Eastern Europe. However you monetize the activity, the reason that Putin has the leverage he has in Eastern Europe is because we stopped drilling oil in January of 2021. We stopped becoming an energy exporter. But those barrels of oil are always converted into what? Dollars. If we take those dollars and now monetize them in a cryptocurrency, there's a way for all of you to protect resources in an anonymous and secure private way without giving up control to a nefarious actor. That's the go-do for all of you. That's what I don't know how to do. But we need to be able to raise the Rosie the Riveters of 1940 in the digital currency space. That's what we need. If you sat me down beyond password, that's all I can get in there.
You know, honestly, the general is absolutely right on this. And I would point to the exciting part that we have because we are far behind, and you all in this crowd know it. We are up against oppressive governments that stifle innovation. So China and Russia may be ahead of us in the way that they're doing things. And as he so clearly laid out, the consequences of the things that we've done up to this point and the repercussions for it. But you guys are free. You're free to get out there and be excited about it, push forward on some of these things and really drive the conversation here and push that innovation faster and further than some of these other places can. We can overtake this and we can move faster, but it's gonna come from you. And it's gonna come from encouraging businesses in your markets to accept crypto. I have restaurants, we don't accept it yet, but let me tell you who does. The city of Chandler does. You can pay your water bill with crypto. There's not a lot. There are not a lot of governments that are embracing it in the way that some of the local governments are. And you can affect change in that space. And you can push that change up just by your pressure on your local governments, for sure.
All right. So I was hoping you were going to have a lot more to add to that. No, so then with as you just mentioned, the city of Chandler here in Arizona, I guess this will be more from a local perspective. So we'll start with Darin and kind of move down. At least from you gentlemen here, what would be a general appetite to start looking at opening up government interaction, or at least citizen interaction with the government, like a water bill or whatever? What appetite or what would you want to see to get to where that becomes more normal? And I'll just kind of leave that open-ended question.
So at the state level, where I am, I'm absolutely open to it. We've looked at this, just started chewing around the edges a bit in the past few years here in Arizona, but I'm absolutely open to it. I think the question always comes about volatility, and so obviously at the time that payment's made is the value, but other members, when they talk about this issue, that's the thing that always comes up, which I think is just a lack of education, a lack of understanding. And so we just have to tackle that. But the fact that Chandler has done this is really a good idea. Other cities at a small level can try it and see. I think actually at the state level, I believe there is some applications where you can use cryptocurrency. I think that even campaigns can use it and can take cryptocurrency, which is, if politicians make it possible to take cryptocurrency for their own campaigns, they ought to make you available to pay your water bill as well.
Well, and tacking onto that, so we had a candidate out here that used NFTs to raise money. So we can embrace this. And again, it goes back to you guys being excited about vetting out your candidates and finding the ones that are really going to support this. They're the ones that when you talk to, they have no idea or they just dismiss you. And you know when you're talking to somebody whether they're dismissing you. Move on to the next candidate. Encourage your friends and others to do the same thing. Pressure your local government, because that adoption breeds through the community. They start hearing about it. They start seeing it. They start asking questions. They start going and saying, well, if I can pay my water bill in crypto, what else can I do? Can I go down to BKDs and ask them if they'll take crypto? And then they're going to ask me that, and I'm going to go, man, I need to start looking into that. And next thing you know, you have a citizens' revolution where currency isn't really controlled, it's being adopted, and then the government has to get behind it and say, you know what? Where we've been sticking our head in the sand, let's get behind this. Let's push this forward.
One of the things that always comes to mind for me is, I love economics. I studied a lot of economics growing up or in school. And this is no longer the Industrial Revolution, right? This is no longer where we have to rely on the most efficient markets where we can grow cotton the most efficiently. Then that's when that's where most of the resources and demand goes, or cattle or vegetables, right, in the breadbasket of California and in the Midwest and so on and so forth. And labor, right, over the past 20, 30 years where labor has gone overseas, right, it's all about the most efficient markets. But as you've heard here, there are no borders, right? You just need some bits and bytes, and you just need some computing capacity, and all of a sudden, it doesn't matter where you have acreage for $100 or $1,000 an acre versus $200,000 an acre. All it is it's about the computing power, and so that's why it's even more important to educate, to continue educating yourselves, ourselves, and bring in the right type of legislation.
Yeah, Darin brought up a good point there about this being a bottom-up thing as opposed to top-down. Right? This is a republic of independent states. This is not the United States of America. This is the United States. So in the great state of Arizona, where we're hailing from, the city of Chandler ventures out into accepting crypto for water bills. Good on them. How they transact it, whether they convert it into dollars the day they accept it to balance the volatility, those are decisions that the community leaders need to make. But these are the laboratories that are going to prove the best way for us to determine how we go forward. And my role in the U.S. Senate is to fight just one thing: the idea that centralized control and centralized execution is what the radical left wants. Right? It's about decentralized execution at the state level, and let you all sort out what the best way to govern at the local level is. And they'll clearly enumerate it, and very narrow powers left to the federal government are executed there, and everything else is left back to the states at the state jurisdiction level, and how they subordinate it to the counties and the cities. I stand proudly behind all of them. And so I like what Chandler's doing. I've seen other communities doing this. I think there's a lot of space. As I said, we're late adapters. We got to make sure we provide a space with some guardrails so we're not allowing nefarious actors from overseas to take advantage of our people. Beyond that, say go hit the field and let's make it happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Mark Anthony Cook to join our panel on stage. Well, we didn't need to ask for a round of applause, did we?
All right, so I asked for about the last 5 minutes of this panel, and the reason for it is I talked to all these guys for it's supposed to be like 15, 20 minutes, turned into hours, more hours, a lot of hours, and the thing that I want to employ is that these guys were willing to take their time to spend with me on behalf of what we can help them understand. The education has to come from us. They are responsible to get education because they're servants to us. They want to be servants to us, but they're willing servants to us. And the us in this case is not you guys or just me. It is literally all of us. So what I want to try to get you to do is to go back to your local communities and do the same thing. These are all Arizonans. I'm from Florida, Michigan, New Jersey, New York. That's where I live. And I'm not from here, but these guys welcomed me in and was willing to, I said, look, I would like to have a panel and I would like for you to come. You don't need to have the answers. As a matter of fact, did I tell you specifically, I didn't expect you to have the answers, and they don't have them. And neither does anyone else. We do not have the answers. But if you don't know the questions, there's no way to get the answers. It's the agitation that necessitate the innovation. There will be no innovation without agitation. Trees will literally fall if there's no wind as they grow to strengthen the root system. And so what we have to be is that constant wind blowing, educating, agitating, but also encouraging these guys and gals and ladies and gentlemen, we are what they need. And what they need, we are. We have to step up. Many of you guys are bees, or in a good way. But many of you guys are bees, and as bees, we're leaders. You guys are ready. You have your Dow, you have your instructions, you have your funding, you have your leadership. You got to get out and go. You're absolutely ready. You've been trained for this. For a time such as this, a man is always raised. You're ready. When the student is ready, the teacher will what? Appear. You're the teachers. Students are ready. They're absolutely ready for you. But you have to teach them. I can come to a foreign state for me and put these guys on the panel. You should be able to go to your states and educate them. Does that make sense? So I want to thank you, General. It was a pleasure and an honor. Pleasure. Pleasure. Pleasure.